Something that tends to happen to organizations as they grow larger is that they get bloated with procedure and policy and rules. And to some degree, this is necessary because it helps keeping things consistent. Because otherwise, you end up with a lot of chaos, everyone doing things their own way, things being documented in unique ways, making it hard to cross reference. And it just makes things really confusing and hard to communicate and look back on. The problem with this is it actually ends up hurting a lot of what helped the organization succeed when it was small and get big in the first place, which is that individuals were likely empowered to make decisions outside of the rule book. Like there's a company, Bonobos, that sells clothing, and they empower their customer service agents to spend money to make the customer happy. Like I think one customer service agent literally commissioned a painting of a customer's dead dog, and you can imagine that's like lifetime marketing for them because that person's going to remember that story and tell it for a long time. But that's something you might not find with a customer service rep at TELUS, for example. They're not empowered in the same way. So it makes a lot of sense for a company as it grows to consciously keep some of these positive elements, and they have to actively actually enforce them. They have to make it rules that, allow people to break rules. That's one of the only ways you'll make people feel safe enough to do that in a large organization. So individuals being empowered to make decisions that help the customer and thus help the company in the long run, as well as things like the individuality and uniqueness of people. Because people's personality is actually an asset. It's often what enables real competitive edge, what I call diversity of ideas, right? Not diversity of skin color or origin or anything like that. To me, those are just proxies for the real thing that matters, which is the diversity of ideas. And personality to me is part of that. So when you create a workplace culture or an organizational culture where people's personalities and uniqueness is clamped down on and they're expected to basically do things one way, follow the rules, follow the procedure book, what you're kind of doing is what our school system does, which was really meant to just print out, fungible copies of people that could be swapped in and out of different roles. The problem with that, of course, is that you miss out on all the creativity, all of the individuality, all of the personality. And I think that's part of what allows small companies to beat big companies in certain areas is bringing out the uniqueness of individuals. But then as they grow large, they lose that. So I think companies have to make an effort to nurture that and encourage that in their people so that people know that it's actually a good thing that they're different and that they're trying to, solve problems from a different angle together. And especially when you find, get that collaborative effort from different perspectives, what you find is that you're able to solve problems way better, more creatively, and often at less expense than people who are just following a rule book, which is part of how you can be leaner than your competition. In terms of applying this on an individual basis, if you're joining a company and you're seeing some of these signs, it can be worth speaking up or it can even be worth leading by example and just taking small initiative steps towards, you know, uh, applying unique problem solving, being yourself, showing up in a certain way that inspires others to do the same. The reality is you don't have to be appointed a leader to lead. You can lead simply through your actions, showing people that you're going to do things a different way and, it could work. And when it does work, it will show them that it's actually safe to be that way. You can lead by example. And often people just need a reminder that this is possible, right? It's not like people going to work consciously deciding to suppress themselves. It's more so that it's been habituated over time, and since everybody's doing it, everybody just copies along. Nobody thinks to break the mold, which is why a fresh hire can be such a sort of fresh breath of air and can really help people change in positive ways over time. And that's basically the last thing I want to talk about is why it's so important for companies to always be hiring. It's not just that you need to replenish for, the people that you lose over time. It's also that you really need young blood, new blood, diversity of ideas to come in because the people in the company have been doing things the same way for so long that it's gotten stale. It's the people who come in that will have competitive experience from other companies, other fields. They'll bring new ideas, fresh perspectives. They'll see the way you're doing things and they'll start to question things naturally. And you should encourage that. Like Toyota, they would have, there's this story of how they would have new employees stand in a box that they would draw like in chalk on the ground, a square. They would have them stand in there until they could state something they would improve about the assembly line. And they couldn't go home until then. A bit of an extreme example, but you get the idea, right? It's how can you encourage people to tell you how things could be better? And you kind of have to encourage them actively because if you don't, the default for many people is to hold back because they don't want to stand out. They don't want to seem too critical or harsh. They might think, who am I? I'm just a, new recruit. I don't have the right to say anything. So you have to empower people to do that. And again, you can lead by example.